I'm reading each sentence. This is the first summit which enters into the divine perfection, Sadharmya and Sadrishya. For all the rest, only look up to it or catch some rays of its significance. Sadharmya means to put on the nature of the divine. And Sadrishya means to become like the divine. Sadrishya. Sadrishya and Sadharmya. Sadharmya is usually the result of the Karma Yoga, and Sadrishya is the path of Jnana Yoga. Yeah, and there is also the path of Bhakti Yoga, and that is the intimacy with the divine. Okay? So, for all the rest, only look up.
Excuse me. You said Sadrishya is a part of Dhyan Yoga, and what is the other thing you said? You become the divine.
Yeah, you put on the nature of the divine.
That is the first one, Sadharmya.
Yeah. Yes.
But the second one is what?
Sadrishya and Sadharmya and I'm forgetting the Sanskrit word for the path of bhakti. Okay, it is intimacy. Okay, what is the Sanskrit word? I'm 83 years old and my mind fails sometimes. After some time, the word will come to me. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, Salokya. That's right. You are in the same world as the divine. Salokya. And also the intimacy with the divine. That is the it will come to me. Okay, but Salokya is there definitely. You are in the same. You are in the same world as the divine. His presence is felt. Okay, I go to the next sentence. The highest heights of mind or of our mind come still within the belt of the mitigated ignorance. So let's have a look at what he's saying. The highest heights of mind. Okay? In other words, you are in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay? The highest heights of mind or over mind, not above the overmind, but below the overmind and above the mind. Okay? These four planes, they come, still, you have not yet become absolutely beyond ignorance. Come still within the belt of a mitigated ignorance. In level 1, when you are identified with your body, mind, life, it is absolutely unmitigated ignorance, absolute total ignorance. Mitigated means made less. Okay. So when you go to level 2 in the spiritual planes of consciousness, remember the four planes: higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, overmind. Overmind, below the overmind and above the mind. These four planes of consciousness in the level 2. It's a mitigated ignorance. Ignorance is still there, because if you define ignorance as seeing the many, you still see that. You still see the unreality of the physical world you see. So that's a mitigated ignorance. Ignorance made less. Very clear language, right? Okay. So level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1, total ignorance. You are not understanding at all the reality of things. You go to the second level of consciousness in the self, okay? Then it is a mitigated ignorance. It's a lesson. It has become less. Diminished ignorance. They can refract a divine light, but not pass it on in undiminished power to our lower members. So when you are in that consciousness, it reflects a divine light. It reflects, okay? And refraction, there is a slight distortion also. Refraction of the divine light, but it cannot be passed on in undiminished power to our lower members. Some amount of diminished power is possible. Okay, so clear the language. Now, so in other words, total total passing of the power from is possible only at the supermind. When you are at supermental level, the full power, you have the capacity to put it into your body, mind, life, the power of the divine. But when you are in level 2 in the spiritual planes of consciousness, some amount of power is there. Okay, it is a diminished power, but doesn't have the capacity to pass on the undiminished power. That means the total power to the lower members. Which are the lower members? Body, mind, life. Okay, body, life, mind. So very clear what he's saying, right? We go to the next sentence. For so long as we are within the triple stratum of mind, life, body, our active nature continues to work in the force of the ignorance, even when the soul in mind possesses something of the knowledge. So very clear what he's saying. So, okay. So for so long as we remain within the triple stratum of mind, life, and body. Okay. So when you are identified with the mind, life, and body, and our active nature, you remember the inactive nature is the self, level 2, but the active nature is in level 1. Okay, so continues to work in the force of the ignorance. So when you are at level 1, identified with body, mind, life, the ignorance is complete. Even when the soul in mind, even when the soul in mind possesses something of the knowledge, partly there may be some, but yet you are in ignorance. And even if the soul were to reflect or to represent all the largeness of the knowledge in its mental consciousness, it would be unable to mobilize it rightly in force of action. So clear. If you go to the spiritual level of consciousness, your ignorance is made less, definitely. But do you have the power to completely transfer all the divine power into the body, mind, life? No. So I'm saying very clearly, no. Even if the soul were to reflect or to represent all the largeness of the knowledge in its mental consciousness. Now, when Srimanda uses the word mental, be very clear, he is talking also of level 2, which is also mental. Okay, this is sometimes very confusing, and I had certain arguments with some people, but I'm sure of what I'm saying. Okay, for instance, when they were discussing others, okay, they were discussing, for instance, people who have realized, I won't go into names, but they were realizing, and some said, oh, that's a mental realization. So it's a mental realization means you've gone to the second level. It's not the supramental realization. Okay, so that's what I mean by largeness of knowledge is not possible at level 1. So largeness of knowledge in its mental consciousness is level 2. Okay, it would be unable to mobilize it rightly in force of action. Some rightly you can't do it, but to a certain extent you can you have power over the lower body, mind, life. You can transfer some of it. As I said, you can have thoughts, you can solve certain problems, you can even have certain powers. Okay, Srimanda was experiencing all these things much before he attained the supermental level. Okay? So what happens at level 2? So they say the truth in its action. Now, no, when it is action, he means the physical world, level 1. Very clear in its action. You have to understand exactly what he means. When he's talking of truth in action, means at physical level, might greatly increase, but it would still be pursued by a limitation, still condemned to a divisibility, which would prevent it from working integrally in the power of the infinite. So when you are at level 2 and there is a mental illumination also, yet your total transmission of power from the highest to the lowest is not possible. Okay? Something does, yeah, you can. Those who are yogis and who have attained to the liberation, certainly they have a little bit of power, but not the absolute power to transform even the body, mind, life. That's what he's saying. Clear, na? So, we are identifying the word, the truth in its action. In its action, again I repeat, level 1, body, mind, life. That's where the action is. When you go to level 2, the consciousness is not in action, it is inactive. Remember, immutable might greatly increase. Okay? The what you were at level 1, when you go to level 2, your consciousness will greatly increase, your knowledge will greatly increase, even the power will increase to a certain extent. But it would still be pursued by limitation, still condemned to the divisibility which would prevent it from working integrally in the power of the infinite. You are still, the divisibility is still there. Okay? You are seeing the many also when you are in level 2. The power of a divinely illumined mind may be immense compared with ordinary powers. He is repeating the same thing in different words. The power of the divinely illumined mind, that means level 2, may be immense compared to ordinary powers, level 1. Okay? But it will still be subject to incapacity, and there can be no perfect correspondence between the force of the effective will and the light of the idea which inspires it. The will not be there. Knowledge will be there, but no will. And that is the reason why the ascetic and the others, Buddhists, they reject the physical world. I am not able to transform the lower. It is impossible to transform the lower, so we reject it. It's justified. If you are stopping at the level 2, that's exactly why Shivananda said, no, I have to go to level 3. Then only I have full power in the physical world. So, the power of a divinely illumined mind, level 2, may be immense compared with ordinary powers, level 1. But it will still be subject to incapacity, and there can be no perfect correspondence between the force of the effective will, Shakti, okay, and the light of the idea, Chit. So Chit Shakti are still not working in perfect tandem. They are working not in harmony with each other. That's what Shraddha is saying. I read the next sentence. The infinite presence may be there in status. There you are. Status means now immutability. But the dynamis, the action in the level 1, of the operations of nature, still belongs to the lower Prakriti. The dynamis status is level 2, dynamis is level 1. Okay? Of the operations of nature. Which are the operations of nature? Your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical actions. These are the operations of nature. They still belong to the lower Prakriti. He is using the word lower Prakriti because there is a higher Prakriti also. When you put on the Para Prakriti, your Prakriti also starts becoming divine as you go higher and higher. So, must follow its triple modes of working. What are the triple modes of working? Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Okay? Triple modes of working, which belong to the body-mind life and cannot give any adequate form to the greatness within it. The greatness is there in the lower Prakriti, but it is hidden. It cannot be brought out fully when you are in the level 2. When you are in level 2, your power is increased like anything, knowledge is increased, but you still can't do it fully. Okay? Some imperfection still remains. Okay? This is the tragedy of ineffectivity. Okay? It's a tragedy according to Srila, because how many people have gone, Christ has come, Buddha has come, so many have come, but has anything fundamentally changed in the physical world? No, nothing has changed, it's still the same. You are giving the solution to go out of the world, but you are doing nothing for the world. That's why Srila says, no, something has to be done for the world. Otherwise, suffering will remain forever, death will remain forever. That's not possible. It has to change. So, this is the tragedy of ineffectivity. You could say that what is it? Ineffectivity is all right, it's a fact. Okay. But Srila is considering it a tragedy because he wants that also to go away. Okay. It's a tragedy. Others don't feel it as a tragedy. It's a circumstance. It is a reality. So we don't use it. Okay. That's what they will say. Who is the they? Buddhists, and the Mayavadins, okay, that's what they will say. Even the materialists also will say that. What can I do? There is imperfection here, but that's it. I accept it. But says, no, doesn't accept. Tragedy, he calls it. Tragedy of what? Of the hiatus, the gap, the difference, the hiatus between ideal and effective will. There's an effective will to a certain extent can be done, and there's an ideal will which is fully effective. Ideal, fully effective, effective will, partly effective. Of our constant incapacity to work out in living form and action the truth we feel in our inner consciousness that pursues all the aspirations of mind and life towards the divinity behind them. That is why throughout history, many people have said, I know the truth, but I follow the falsehood. Okay? I know what should be done, but I cannot do it. This is the tragedy of the spiritual consciousness when it is stuck at the level 2. Okay? That's what is being said. I know the good, but I follow the worse. All through history, so many people have said this. They can see clearly, I know what should be done, but I cannot do it. In the Bible, you have the spirit is willing, the flesh is weak. All these ideas point to the same thing. The perfection, the divine perfection, is not possible when you reach even the spiritual consciousness of the level 2. Very clear. Okay, so this is the tragedy of ineffectivity of the hiatus between ideal and effective will, of our constant incapacity to work out in living form and action the truth we feel in our inner consciousness that pursues all the aspiration of mind and life towards the divinity behind them. Note also clearly that he is stopping at mind and life and not saying body, because the body is the last, okay? So that's very difficult. But the vijnana or gnosis is not only truth, but truth power. Truth is chit and power is shakti. So vijnana or gnosis is not only truth, but truth power. In other words, chit and shakti both are available only at the vijnana level. Okay? Vijnana level is supermind. It is the very working of the infinite and divine nature. It becomes not lower prakriti, but para prakriti. It becomes the higher divine nature. It is the divine knowledge, one with the divine will in the force and delight of a spontaneous and luminous and inevitable self-fulfillment. Inevitable fulfillment, self-fulfillment. In other words, when you reach the supermind, your power and your consciousness become complete, and you can make that descend into the spiritual world. So if you have even an experience of it, even a temporary experience of the supermind, at that particular time you will feel that you are able to change. But then again, the consciousness cannot remain settled in the supermind, so it comes down. And when it comes down, you again feel the ineffectivity, the incapacity to do that. Okay? So that's why the vijnana or gnosis is not only truth, but truth power. He's using different words. Truth, you can say knowledge, the reality of the principles of existence, truth. But truth power, it's a very working of the infinite and divine nature. It's a divine knowledge, one with the divine will in the force and delight. Now he's talking also of delight, of a spontaneous and luminous and inevitable self-fulfillment. There is no escaping. It is inevitable. Fulfillment is inevitable at the supramental level. By the gnosis, then, we change our human into a divine nature. So if you want to change your body-mind life and its imperfections, supermind, you have to rise up to the supermind, the third level. Okay? So now we can go to the next sentence. So, one of you read.
Shall I
I'm
read?
reading Rangata.
Yes, Archana, go ahead. What then is this gnosis?
What then is this gnosis and how can we describe it?
Two opposite errors have to be avoided. Two misconceptions that disfigure opposite sides of the truth of gnosis. One error of intellect-bound thinkers takes Vijnana as synonymous with the other Indian term buddhi, and the buddhi as synonymous with the reason, the discerning intellect, the logical intelligence. The systems that accept this significance pass at once from a plane of pure intellect to a plane of pure spirit. No intermediate power is recognized, no diviner action of knowledge than the pure reason is admitted. The limited human means for facing truth is taken for the highest possible dynamics of consciousness, its topmost force and original movement. An opposite error, a misconception of the mystics, identifies Vijnana with the consciousness of the infinite, free from all ideation, or else ideation packed into one essence of thought, lost to other dynamic action in the single and invariable idea of the one. This is the Chitkhana of the Upanishad and is one movement, or rather one thread of the many aspected movement of the Gnosis. The Gnosis, the Vijnana, is not only this concentrated consciousness of the infinite essence, it is also and at the same time an infinite knowledge of the myriad play of the infinite. It contains all ideation, not mental but supramental. But it is not limited by ideation, for it far exceeds all ideative movement. Nor is the Gnostic ideation in its character and intellectual thinking. It is not what we call the reason, not a concentrated intelligence. For the reason is mental in its methods, mental in its acquisitions, mental in its spaces. But the ideative method of the Gnosis is self-luminous, supramental. Its eat of thought light, spontaneous, not proceeding by acquisition. Its thought basis a rendering of conscious identities, not a translation of the impressions born of indirect contacts. There is a relation and even a sort of broken identity between the two forms of thought, for one proceeds covertly from other. Mind is born from that which is beyond mind, but they act on different planes and reverse each other's process.
Not the word reverse each other, they are opposites. So, very interesting by explaining what he means by the supermind. He is not using the word supermind precisely because why he is explaining here. Okay, he is very clearly telling you that the word supermind can be mistaken. It can be something above the mind, that means level 2, or something above even the supermind. Supermind, it is only absolutely the highest. It is neither of that, neither of this. It is an intermediate plane of consciousness. Okay, that's what he is explaining. Now we'll look at the terms. Okay. I'm reading each sentence. What then is this gnosis and how can we describe it? The word gnosis is very interesting. How you compare it with knowledge, okay? You have a KN and you don't pronounce the K in English. And in English for the gnosis also, you don't pronounce the G. Now you compare that to the Sanskrit, jnana, okay? And in our Indian language we say jnana, G, okay? Jnana. But Jagannath ji, who was a Vedalankar, okay? He used to work in the press with us. He was a Vedalankar. He knew all the Vedas and he was a Sanskrit enthusiast. He was a guiding light for all our Sanskrit studies in the beginning when he was there. And he said that it has to be pronounced as Vijnana. It's not a G, it's a J. So you have to say Vijnana. Okay, that's the right way to pronounce it. So, in our Indian languages make it even Prajna. Okay, Prajna. It is actually Prajna. Okay, so that's by the way. Two opposite errors have to be avoided. Two misconceptions that disfigure opposite sides of the truth of gnosis. What are the opposite sides? It's neither below the supermind nor is it above the supermind. Gnosis. Vijnana is something which is between the two. It's between the one and the many. It's a link word. Okay. So one error of intellect-bounded thinkers. Okay. Intellect-bounded thinkers, those who are bounded by the intellect, take Vijnana as synonymous with the other Indian term buddhi, and buddhi as synonymous with reason. Okay. Now, the word buddhi is used in a very flexible manner in Indian philosophy. The buddhi, normally when we speak of buddhi in the normal physical, oh, he is a buddhiman. When we say, we mean intelligence. But buddhi in the Sankhya philosophy refers to the spiritual planes of consciousness. Not the supermind, but the spiritual planes of level 2. Okay. So, buddhi is a word which can be mistaken at level 1 and level 2. Same way is warning us about it. Okay. So, one error of intellect-bounded thinkers takes Vijnana as synonymous with the other Indian term buddhi, as synonymous with the reason, the discerning intellect. The intellect where there is discernment, you can distinguish things, which is the logical intelligence. The logical intelligence is that which uses logic. Okay? So it's not that. It's not the lower. The systems that accept this significance pass at once from a plane of pure intellect to a plane of pure spirit. Okay? So there are many philosophies which pass from the lower buddhi to the highest buddhi. So Srila is warning us against that because they are not conscious of the link word, this gnosis, the Vijnana. They are not conscious of that. Because there are other systems which recognize Vijnana. Okay, so in fact, even the Advaita philosophy, we have the 5 planes of consciousness. We have the Annamaya Purusha, Pranamaya Purusha, Manomaya Purusha. Then we have Vijnanamaya Purusha, which is actually a large field. And then you have the Anandamaya Purusha. So this system, in which 5 words are used, there is a little confusion. Where does Vijnanamaya come to? Is it mind? Is it level 2? Or is it above the soul mind, the highest? That problem is there. That's what Sri Aurobindo is warning us about. So what Sri Aurobindo means is, by Vijnana, I mean the supermind or the supramental, but I don't like the word because it can be mistaken. Okay, that's why he's not saying that here, but he has said that elsewhere. But he is warning us that the supermind is not the lower buddhi, nor is it the highest. And he is explaining what that highest is. Very interesting description. We'll see that. Okay? So, the systems that affect this significance, accept this significance, pass at once from a plane of pure intellect level 1 to a plane of pure spirit level 3. Okay, so no intermediate power is recognized, no diviner action of knowledge than the pure reason is admitted. The limited human means for fixing truth is taken for the highest possible dynamics of consciousness, its topmost force and original movement. So sometimes you are mistaking it for the supermind itself, or not, even above the soul. An opposite error, a misconception of the mystics, identifies Vijnana with the consciousness of the infinite, total, absolutely highest level, free from all ideation, or else ideation packed into one essence of thought, lost to other dynamic action in the single and invariable idea of the one. Now let's look at that very carefully. Free from ideation. In other words, the mind is capable of forming ideas. It can form ideas at level 1. It can also form ideas at level 2. Okay? Or else, but there is an ideation packed into one essence of thought. Okay. Now, you look at the word packed. In other words, and he has told you later on, he is using another word also to explain packed. Chaitanya Ghana. Okay. Ghana is dense. Okay. All our Just 1 second, I lost the text. Yeah. Yeah. So, so what he means is very interesting. We describe that in Chaitanya Ghana is a consciousness which is packed in one essence of thought. In other words, that highest level, okay, what they call also the deep sleep, it is not interested at all in manifestation. It is looking inwards, and that's why it's a concentrated, it's a packed. Okay, very interesting. There is no outward going movement at all. Manifestation is an outward going movement. There is a dilution of consciousness, but this is a packed, concentrated, okay, and invariable idea of the one. Okay, it is absolutely, totally packed. It's like a black hole. Okay, in the universe you have certain black holes. Black holes means the gravitational pull of that particular planet or star or whatever it be is so great that even light, which is the subtlest of substance, cannot escape. It goes inwards but doesn't come out. There is no outward going movement at all. So this is the deep sleep, what you call, or you can also call it the Chaitanya Ghana. Okay, so that's at the highest level, the transcendent consciousness, which is not interested in creating the cosmos. That's a transcendent consciousness. It is beyond the consciousness, beyond the cosmos. Okay, so this is one state when we can realize the divine. It's a transcendent. This is the sorry. This is a Chaitanya Ghana. Okay, the word Chaitanya comes from Chit, and you have to, in English, what can you do? You have to put C-A-I-T. Okay, it's not K, but it is Cha. This is the diacritical. You, in all Sanskrit books, they will tell you how to transliterate into English. It has to pronounce Chaitanya. Okay, Chaitanya Ghana of the Upanishad, and is one movement, or rather one thread of the many aspected movement of the gnosis. So the one movement of the gnosis. In gnosis, in Life Divine, he has discussed there are 3 levels, okay, of the supermind. Level 1 is an absolute still concentrated oneness. Okay, there is no movement there at all. The sea is completely at rest. It is not moving at all. Level 2, okay, I shouldn't say level 2, stage 2, okay, the waves start forming. That's at the overmind level. The waves start forming. And then at level even lower, stage 3, the spiritual planes of consciousness, the movement becomes quite clear and the waves are seen. The sea also is seen and the waves also are seen. And each wave is now beginning to forget that you are part of the sea. Okay? In other words, if an individual has the experience of the overmind, he will see that his individuality is really part of the infinite consciousness. He will know that his mind is one small part of mind plane of consciousness. He will know that his body is a small formation of matter which is universal. That you will see. Okay. So this is what Sindhu is saying. But it is one movement, one thread of the many aspected movement of the gnosis. With one thread, the unmoving. But in the supermind itself, there are 3 levels. Okay? 1 thread, 2 threads, 3 threads. The gnosis, the vijnana, is not this concentrated consciousness of the infinite essence. It is not, because that is even higher than supermind. Okay? Is not only this, it is also, and at the same time, an infinite knowledge of the myriad play of the infinite. The myriad play is the manifestation of the infinite. Okay, so it is not the transcendent, it is not the cosmic, it's not the individual separately, but it is all 3 together. When you are at the supramental level, you have the capacity of all the 3, transcendent, cosmic and individual. Okay. An infinite knowledge of the myriad play. Look at the word myriad play, the infinite play of the infinite. That's the physical world. So all this is there, and it contains all ideation. The word ideation is interesting. You can link it to idea and thought. Okay? It contains all ideation, not mental but supramental. In other words, it contains the capacity, the potentiality of all that can be produced in thought. Okay? It contains all ideation, not some, all ideation, not mental but supramental. But it is not limited by ideation. The supermind is not limited by the capacity of thinking, for it far exceeds all ideative movement. Ideative movement, the capacity of thought. Okay? So, nor is the Gnostic ideation in its character an intellectual thinking. Okay, Gnostic, the stage 2 of the supermind, the waves are beginning. I told you, there's the waves are beginning. That's the Gnostic ideation. Okay? The capacity of thinking, capacity of individualization in its character, and intellectual thinking. It is not intellectual thinking. Intellectual thinking is level 1. Okay? Level 2 is ideation. Level 3 is Gnostic ideation. Okay? Character in intellect. It is not what we call the reason. Reason is level 1, not a concentrated intelligence. Concentrated intelligence, higher up. It is not reason, nor is it the concentrated intelligence. For the reason is mental in its methods, mental in its acquisitions, mental in its basis. But the ideative method of the gnosis is self-luminous, supramental. Its yield of thought light spontaneous, not proceeding by acquisition. Its thought basis is a rendering of conscious identities, not a translation of the impressions born of indirect contacts. So, now the word indirect contacts also, we'll have a brief discussion on that. There are 4 types of knowledge possible. Srenda says. Okay? So that's why he's using the word conscious, indirect contact. At level 1, when we are seeing the physical world, we are having knowledge of the physical world. I am seeing right from my window, I am seeing Golconda, and it's very related to me. But how am I having knowledge of Golconda? Through my senses. It's my senses which are coming in between Golconda and my thinking and my capacity to think. So it's indirect knowledge. It's the senses that are giving me the knowledge. It is representing. Okay? That's the indirect knowledge. Then when you go to level 2, the spiritual planes of consciousness, you are directly perceiving the physical objects without the senses. You are using only subtle senses. So that's a direct contact. Okay? In the spiritual planes of consciousness, you have direct contact. Then in the 3rd level, the absolute, you become what you want to see. Okay? There is no more contact at all. You become what you want to see. And there is a level 4, which is the 3rd level, which is a mitigated form. It's the highest level, but identity is partial. So these are the 4 methods. That's why he's talking of indirect contact. Indirect contact at our level, level 1. Clear? So it's neither that nor the highest where there is no contact at all. Okay? It is not that. It's something in between. So I'll put this in other words. When you are at the physical level, level 1, you are having thoughts. So the buddhi or the vijnana is not the buddhi. It is not mental knowledge. Nor is it something which is absolutely above and which is a deep sleep. It's not the pact. It's not the Chaitanya Ghana. It is not that. It is something in between. The highest is formless and the lowest is form, and the spiritual, the supramental is that which makes the formless into form. So it's something in between. It's a link world. So no pulse. That's what he's explaining in this paragraph. Okay. So, The reason is mental in method, mental in acquisitions, mental in its basis. But the ideative method of the gnosis is self-luminous. It doesn't need light from outside. Self-luminous, supramental. Its yield of thought light, spontaneous, not proceeding by acquisition. Now that's interesting. How do we gather knowledge? How does science gather knowledge? By steps. By you go one step, you understand. Then you realize that that's not a full thing. Then you go to another theory, another theory. You are acquiring knowledge. Okay? You are acquiring knowledge little by little. One piece, two pieces, three pieces. That's the normal mental method. Its thought basis is a rendering of conscious identities. It is rendering of conscious identity Superman, not a translation of the impressions born of indirect. Now note the word translation of the impressions born of indirect contacts. Usually how we experience the world. I am experiencing the world through my eyes, ears, nose, tongue and touch. Okay, and therefore it's a translation. The image in the world is coming to me through my senses, and the senses are distorting and giving me a distorted picture of the world. That's a translation. Okay, there is a relation and even a sort of broken identity between the two forms of thought. Broken identity. For one proceeds covertly from the other. Mind is born from that which is beyond mind. So our mind is a distorted and diminished condition of the supermind. That's what he's saying. Okay. But they seem to be opposites. They are different planes and reverse each other's process. What is meant by reverse each other's process? We'll go into that later. The lower mind, our mind, acquires knowledge by bits and pieces. Okay? It is analytical. But at the highest level, it is not analytical. It sees the whole as one. It is not that it sees a sum of things. It's a entire thing it is seeing as one. So that's the first difference. The second difference is that it is self-luminous. Here we have to approach through the senses. There it is identity. Knowledge by identity. Here it is knowledge by process of acquisition of knowledge. As he says in synthesis, galley slave labor. You have to labor to understand things. Science is going on, trying, experimenting, finding, blundering. Okay, finally gets part of the truth. So that's what he's explaining. But they are on different planes and reverse each other's process. The word reverse is very interesting. Mother explains that in this way. When you are in the ordinary consciousness, your consciousness is going outwards because you are seeing everything through senses. All the senses go outwards. But when you are in the spiritual plane of consciousness, you have gone into yourself. It's a reversal. One is going outwards, and one, the spiritual plane of consciousness, level 2, you are going inwards. And you are not using your senses, you are using subtle senses. Okay? It's a direct contact. That's what it is. So they reverse each other process. Renversement de conscience, she says in French. A reversal of consciousness. Okay? So, wow, 8:34. We have done 2 paras. Not bad. I go into a little detail, and sometimes you may find it a little boring, but the idea is that we have to understand the words how Surendra is using, and when he's using the words, what's he referring? Which word refers to level 1, level 2, level 3? That's why I go into a little more detail. And I can't help it if you feel a little bored, okay? But those who are really interested, it will help me to have a clear idea of what he's saying. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yes,
It is not at all boring, but it is when you give these explanations, it becomes a little more lucid.
Yes, that's what I mean.
So
That's what
it's not boring, okay? Don't have that misconception.
No, I'm not.
Whenever you give the example, it is very easier to understand.
Yes, that's what I mean. Okay, so it's 8:35, and yesterday was the 17th of November, Mother's Darshan day. We go to the room But today I am going because I go with the invalids. I am not capable now of sitting on the ground for 1 hour. So I go on. So I have to go at 9 o'clock today is my time. Okay. So au revoir everybody and have a nice day.
Au revoir.